So just a little bit of housekeeping about the Zoom call that we're on today. I expect that many of you have attended or participated in various Zoom sessions, calls, instruction, all sorts of things over the past many months. This is a meeting, and so you'll see that everybody is in here with the ability to participate. It's not a webinar where everybody else is closed off. So while it does mean that everybody can talk and be seen, you are welcome to choose to put your camera on or not put your camera on. Also for the microphone, because there are so many of us, I would ask that if you can try to keep your microphone muted in case there's any background noise, because there are so many people. And if there are any questions, I'd encourage you to use the chat feature, and I will be monitoring it, and CCP staff will be monitoring it through the course of the time so that we don't miss any questions that you might have. And that's really all I have for that. So we're going to talk about Miniprint, which as an exhibition is somewhat unique because of the size restrictions on it. Miniprint is limited to works that measure no more than 4 square inches. And that does not mean you have to submit a piece that is square. We have had some very creative uses of 4 square inches of space, but it does mean it does have to be limited to 4 square inches. And we'll talk a bit about how that works out as we go through the submission requirements. So Miniprint was started in 1997 at CCP, and it alternates every other year with our Footprint International Biennial. In the time that we've had this, we've received entries from over 1,500 artists from around the world. So we do receive quite a few entries each year. This year's submission entry deadline is April 3rd. The jury notification will be May 1st. So if your print or prints have been selected to be included in the exhibition, you'll find out by May 1st. Then the exhibition dates are June 6th through August 29th. This year, we're so pleased to have as a juror, Christina Weil. She's an independent art historian, and she writes about 19th century printmaking and women artists. You may have heard about her recent book that was released in 2019. Yes, I have it too, Chris. It's The Women of Atelier 17, Modernist Printmaking in Mid-Century New York. It was published by Yale University Press and has gotten a lot of really wonderful coverage. And she seems to be just a tremendous person. So we're looking forward to having her come to CCP. And this will be up as an exhibition. I don't know how many of you are local or in the area or the region, but the gallery is open. It's just open by appointment. That is part of the COVID restrictions and requirements that we have timed entry. So we have appointments that are in 45-minute intervals, and the gallery is open every day. So please, if you want to come by and see the show, you're welcome to do so. And we currently do have an exhibition up, well, 2 exhibitions up as well. So you don't have to wait until summer to see some good printmaking. But what I'm going to do now is turn this over to CCP staff who are going to be the people receiving in the prints to go through the information on the prospectus and go kind of point by point to discuss details and, sometimes those thorny areas that raise a lot of questions and concerns. And I will now pass it over to staff. Chris, would you like to start?
Sure. I actually thought one of the first places I would start is for those of you that are currently kind of thinking about imagery and developing imagery. One of the things I was going to mention is in terms of calculating the image size. I often recommend people consider using the centimeter measure as a way of developing proportions if you wanted to stay away from the square. One of the things I found is that the 25.8 square centimeters is sometimes easier to calculate using a centimeter calculation. So, like 6 centimeters by 4 centimeters comes out to 24 square centimeters. Sometimes it's easier than doing all the strange math in inches. Because as always, you can go much, much smaller, but you can also do a long vertical or horizontal presentation, something like, I think on our prospectus, we talk about 1 inch by 4 inch, but anything that fits within those 4 square centimeters or 25.8 square centimeters or inches, it qualifies. You also do have to be careful that you don't, sometimes people have tried to put multiple plates in a single presentation. The space between those images would actually count as part of the image area. So breaking up multiple pieces, it all still has to fit within that sort of image size area. I think if you put a couple little pieces on different parts of the paper, that will be disqualified. The entire readable image area is what is in that 4 square inches. Also, while we're talking about the paper size, there is a maximum. We do not accept prints larger than 8 by 10. It has to do with the way that we present the work in the exhibition. If you did submit something that was larger, we would be required to tear larger pieces of paper down to fit the presentation mats that we exhibit them in. It also helps to keep the package, the mailing size, within a range that will save everyone some headache. But in that restriction, we also do have people often submit works that have no margins. That is also acceptable. We've had people do very creative things in the past. We had one artist submit work printed on tea bags, and the tea bags actually turn out to be about 4 inches square when they're made. So we have had people kind of push the boundaries, and that small size with no margin is acceptable as well. Trying to think, Jackie, do you have any other comments about the image size or the paper size you want to talk about?
You just want to be mindful that if you're going to do any kind of sheet collé, make sure that your image, when you're gluing it, doesn't go over the measurements of that 4 square inches, because that will disqualify you within the margins. We've seen that happen. If you're going to use decorative paper, make sure it's not part of your imagery, because that will be counted as part of the square, the image size. We've had people do that.
And also I think, I don't know if Jackie, you had found your measure. We do give a very, narrow range. If for some reason your plate bevel is a little beyond the size restrictions, or sometimes we have shrinkage and things like that. We don't exclude things within a 32nd or a 16th of an inch beyond. We are aware that sometimes things happen under pressure, and we wouldn't.
Shrinkage.
Yeah, and shrinkage as well. So, we are a little bit flexible, but, definitely something that's a good 1/2 inch, one dimension or another, would have to be disqualified. And in those cases, the juror will not see prints that are disqualified. Only the prints fitting these parameters will work. Moving forward, any printmaking medium is eligible. We do limit it to what's generally considered fine art printmaking, woodcut, etching, intaglio, any intaglio, screen printing, monotype. we do expand a little bit into some of the edges of printmaking, like frottage would technically be, qualify. We do take original digital media, nothing that is considered a reproduction, but anything that was originated in a digital space and outputted in an inkjet printer or something. But we do not accept direct reproduction. So if you had, say, a painting and you took a picture of it and you shrunk it down and printed out, while we can't really judge that that is a copy, we really do ask that people do things that seem to be using the computer as a tool to create imagery. Some of these eligibility restrictions may also be up to the juror. If the juror does not believe that something is what it says it is, or is more, something cut out of a magazine or a photograph that's been mounted, those things may be disqualified, and all kind of the juror has the ability to include or exclude things based on what they perceive as fitting the eligibility requirements. Trying to think if there's any other.
We've had people that done encaustic as mini print as well.
Yes, like an encaustic monotype.
Yeah.
We do want to be more inclusive in what's considered a print. And so there is a little bit of flexibility, trace monotypes. We've had people submit blind embossings as well that has no ink on it, but is clearly gone through a press and has the embossment. All of those things are eligible, as well as mixed media pieces. Someone doing a little hand coloring on a print would not be excluded. So we are flexible and trying to be inclusive in what's incorporated.
Two-dimensional.
Yes. Oh, yes. Because of the way we exhibit the work, we are restricting this to generally two-dimensional work. We had someone inquire about submitting a book, and a book would not be eligible, but individual pages that were part of a book would be considered eligible. Anything that's reasonably flat is okay. Obviously, if there's embossment or other kind of things going on in the print, stitching, collage work, that's clearly collaged into a print would be okay. But anything, I think we've even had people, maybe stitch a bead or put something on it that had a little bit of dimension, but we cannot take anything that is, mounted on something that's, an inch thick or anything large, dimensional like that. It does not fit the qualifications. And that also, the juror may decide that they don't agree that something is eligible due to sort of pushing the boundaries. Just the quick mention, when we put on the exhibition, the work is presented in a mat on the wall. They're usually groups of 5 in a large mat. The window is 4 inches by 4 inches, although we have had to cut larger windows if someone wanted to do a print that was, say 5 inches by a 1/4 inch. We would, create a special way of exhibiting that, as long as the image size is not beyond that 4 square inch size. Let's think if there's any other, I think that's pretty much. I don't know if there's any, obviously, if you have any specific questions, put it in the chat and we can address any particular questions. Using the prospectus, you can go through and see how to fill out the entry forms. We do allow you to submit multiple impressions from an edition or multiple impressions from a variable edition, but it would only count as a single entry. You need to be very clear when you're submitting multiple copies of prints for the exhibition that the print that has the label on it is the one that the juror will look at. But in order to encourage sales and to save on shipping, we do allow you to submit multiple copies of the entry so that if it is selected in, we could sell it to multiple people. And that would just make it easy. I think it would be worth mentioning if you submit to the exhibition and you are not selected by the juror, we do have something called the Salon des Refusés, which we still have to figure out a little bit on, due to the COVID restrictions, how we're going to present those this year. But anyone who submits work that fits the eligibility requirements will be seen by the juror. And then after the exhibition is juried, those works not selected will also have an opportunity to be seen and purchased. We often find the Salon des Refusés has many sales based on the fact that while the juror has a particular taste, art collectors are often have very varied taste and are interested in works that the juror did not jury into the exhibition.
Chris, would you want to mention anything about like the packing and shipping, especially thinking about submitting like maybe one print, but multiple prints from that edition? Like how do we want to see them and get them safely?
Yeah. Most important is to make sure that the packaging that you send has enough dimensional stability that the prints will not get damaged in shipping. We've often had prints show up with dented corners, or very thin packages often get creased. So we often suggest that if you can put in either some sort of rigid plastic like gator board, or foam core is often good. Also, if you're going to use corrugated cardboard, it's best to use 4 sheets and to take those corrugations and have them go off bias so that each side of your package would have 2 layers with the corrugations going in opposite directions. That will create a much more stable package that won't be able to be creased or damaged in shipping. And it usually doesn't add too much to the weight. We do ask that you don't ship in, very thick, heavy wood packages or anything that's too weighty. Obviously, you just want to make sure that it's going to protect your work so that it can come in the best shape, and the juror will see the prints as you intended them to be seen.
It's always best to send in additional impressions or similar impressions if it's a unique print, especially for sales. So if you wanted to send that all together with your entry as you're submitting, that'd be perfectly fine.
Yeah, and I think in that respect, if you were, say, submitting monotypes, and you had monotypes that were similar, maybe a ghost impression or a reworking, that could be submitted as a additional impression of the same entry. And what we would do is if someone was interested in the work, and we said there were additional prints available, we might be able to show people what the similar impressions looked like. And then obviously if one of them is sold, it wouldn't come out of the show, but we would be able to offer additional versions for more sales. And one comment about the pricing, which might as well mention now, we have found that in the past, prints that are priced in the $50 range or lower tend to be the sweet spot for sales. Obviously, there are prints that are priced at higher amounts, $100, $200, $300 a print. But based on the size, we often find that there is not a lot of interest in prints at that price point. If there's any way to price them, as I said, within that, say $50 to $100 range, that would be the best. We do want to mention that we do take a 50% commission on sales. Helps to ensure that we can do the best marketing and promotion. We, as a nonprofit, only survive through these commissions and things. So that definitely you want to take that into account in your pricing. I've often found that works priced, say, $40, you may find that you can sell 2 or 3 copies. And if you price them at $80, you may only sell 1. So you may actually be able to make more sales money by selling more prints at a lower price point. But obviously, if the going rate for your print is in the $100 or $200 range, you shouldn't feel like you should have to discount it for this exhibition, but definitely take that into account. I know, some of our best sellers have been prints that are priced, $25 or $30 a print, and they often fly off the wall, and we have to reach out to the artist and try to get more impressions. That definitely happens.
Chris, there's a question here about if the print is printed on a 3x3 inch piece of paper, does it have to be mounted on an 8x10 piece of paper?
Oh, it does not have to be. I will say, if you send us a print that is, say, a bleed print that is torn down to 2 inches by 2 inches, or 2 inches by 1.5, we do our best to very carefully handle those prints and hinge them with a thin Asian hinge that we would put on the back of the print and then mount on another piece of paper. If you were able to mount it on a piece of paper larger than 4 by 4, it would allow us to mount it in the mat with photo corners. It would save us some handling. As I said, the windows, we usually put them in are 4 by 4, giving a 1-inch margin around your print. It's not a requirement that it's mounted, but it definitely does help. And sometimes people will put photo corners in their mounting. And if those photo corners are in the window, we will sometimes try to mat that out with an overmat, because we do like the prints to be showcased where you're really just looking at the print itself. But anything that anyone could do to make it easier to present, we would appreciate. As I've said, oh my goodness, we've had all kinds of things like the tea bags, how you mount those, some of the very, very thin papers that are torn down, or transparent papers. We do our best to try to present those in the cleanest possible way. But no, you're not required to mount them on a larger piece of paper. It definitely does help though, with the juror seeing them, us handling them, and putting them in the mat. So that hopefully will answer your question. Let's think of what else. Jackie, do you want to talk about the entry fees and some of that stuff?
Sure. What do you want to talk about? Well, there are three different price ranges. The first one is for CCP members. If you're a current CCP member, it's $30. For a non-CCP member, it's $40. And if you're international, it's $50. CCP members and non-members, any US entries need to provide return postage when submitting. International do not. That's part of their entry fee. That's why they're a little higher. You are allowed to submit up to 3 prints for the 1 entry fee. If you wanted to submit additional image, an additional separate image into the 3, it's an additional $10 per print for that entry, for that submission.
With a maximum, we have a maximum of 5 entries per artist, is what we try to hold it to.
Yes. One thing I do want to since Miniprint is such a huge undertaking and there's a lot of artists and a lot of prints that we're dealing with, every submission gets a number. So after you've been processed with a number, I will not be able to coordinate your name with your print. You're known to me with a number, because everything has to go in my database as a number, which you will get that number at a later time as notifications go out after the juror has done her process. What else am I missing for entry fees?
Well, there are multiple ways to pay for domestic. We appreciate you can include a check with your entries. There's also an option to do PayPal. We definitely have some complications with international payments, which is where PayPal is very useful. Just to mention, you had mentioned about the mailing. The international entries, we include the return mailing because it must be sent from a US system with US paid postage. So return entries can only be done through the US postal system or other US based mailing things. You can also email, yep, you can also email Jackie on the prospectus for more information about payments.
Yeah.
I'd also put a bit in here. Jackie is our membership manager too. And if anybody is interested in becoming a member of CCP, I mean, for an exhibition like this, yes, there is a discount, but there are other benefits. Like, get in touch with Jackie. She'd be happy to tell you more and help you out with that.
Yeah. Also,
sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Jackie.
I was going to say, if you became a member today, you have a benefit of entering 2 international shows at the member price, the miniature print and next year's footprint, and the member show.
Yes. I also wanted to mention in terms of shipping, while every artist that enters is required to pay the entry fee, if you are close enough or have other artists that are submitting, you could send it all in a single package, and that would save a little bit of the shipping, but they would be processed as individual entries. And then at the end of the show, we would return all of those prints back to the same sender. As with domestics would include the return shipping and international. So you could save a little bit of money on the shipping costs by putting your packages together. And it just makes it a little bit easier, especially people that are sending from further away, or if anyone's part of a print organization or a print shop that wants to just package it all together. It does save a little bit of the shipping problems and making sure that it all kind of comes at once. But each individual artist does need to fill out the full entry form and include the full entry fee for their entries.
Well, there's a question. Can you become a member when you're somebody who lives in Europe?
We do have international membership. We do have people who live international that are members. And you can join online through our website.
Yes, and let's see, there's another question just popped up here. Can a print have a folded over section onto the front of the print as long as the measurement is, as long as what is presented as the image area fits the size restriction? I think we love it when people kind of push the boundaries, but if in that 4-inch window that we present the work in, if there is visual information that goes beyond that restrictive size, it would be considered ineligible. We've had people submit, decorative paper as the paper with a print mounted on it, but that decorative paper becomes part of the visual image. So that would be disqualified. It really needs to be presented in a way that that miniature size is really the image that you're looking at. Obviously, colored paper or the texture would be okay, but if it's deemed by either the juror or by the administrators, as in the staff, that the image really has all this visual information beyond the image size, it would most likely be rejected from the jurying. You know, there is obviously we could, you know, have a little bit of a conversation about it, but, you know, the idea of this is always that the small image is what we're looking for, not a whole complicated piece of paper and you're trying to point out that this is the image on it. That would be disqualified. And let's see, how does the oh, as we had said, a larger print. We do have some mats that are a larger proportion to accommodate the 1 inch by 4 inch. I think the horizontal and vertical mats are 6 inches by 4 inches, so that we can present the larger horizontal or vertical images. I know one year we actually did have to cut I think it was a very long, skinny mat because someone did an extraordinarily long, skinny print. And as we said, we're more than happy to accommodate someone pushing the boundaries as long as that image size is within that 4 square inches. So, you know, you can definitely take some liberties, but it would need to be clear that it fits those eligibility restrictions. So let's see, moving forward, prizes and awards. We will be awarding a variety of cash awards. In the past, we often do first, second, third, honorable mentions. There's usually about $1,000 in cash awards that we give to the juror to determine how they want that distributed. I know in the last year, the jurors selected 8 artists and the prize money was divided equally among those 8 artists. There is a little bit of flexibility. Sometimes the juror will just simply say, this is the best print. This is the print that I want to award first prize to. And I think sometimes that would maybe be a $500 award to the print. Sometimes the juror chooses an artist to receive the award and has given first prize to a series of prints. All 3 were deemed the first place award selection. So it was really the artist that won the award, not the particular print. So definitely if you have a series of works that you wanted to submit, as we said, 3 or 5 entries, it's possible that the juror may select all 5. We like to allow the juror some flexibility in choosing who they want or which print they would like to award the award to. We are also working on purchase awards. Often those are material awards. In the past, we've had Takach Press, Renaissance, printmaking supplies, graphic chemical. We are going to reach out to maybe some international printmaking suppliers, and those purchase awards, they would be awarded to a print. That print would then become property of the company that gave the award, and then the submitting artist would get, usually it's between $50 and $200 award of materials, whether it's paper, inks, or a credit for purchasing, like Graphic Chemical would give a gift certificate that you could then present at the checkout, so that you would be able to get that discount. For international award winners of some of these things, there are sometimes restrictions on domestic or international awards, and we've often worked with the international artists to help to make sure that they receive the award coming to them if they're not able to use the specific discounts and things like that. So we work with the award winners to make sure that they get the awards. In that, we also do promote all the works that are get into the show. We'll do social media posts. There'll be a catalog created. There will also be an online catalog created so that there'll be an ability to see the works if you're not able to come in person. And those award winners particularly will get extra showcasing. Trying to think of other things. At the end of the exhibition, the works will be returned that didn't sell. It's possible that we, in the past, have had the Miniprint exhibition travel on to additional venues. We have a organization in Greenwich, Connecticut, which isn't too far away. We've often lent them the show. Obviously, if you didn't want the works to continue on, you could let us know. But if we can find additional venues for this exhibition, it's definitely something that we encourage, and we would love more opportunity for sales, more opportunity for visibility. In that, we do, just looking at the prospectus, we do everything we can to handle the prints as carefully as possible. Although, obviously, if prints are packaged in shipping to us, that is not our liability. And if in the exhibition, a print falls apart or something, we will obviously notify you, but there is a limit to our liability on some of those things. And if any other questions come up, feel free to contact us if you have any questions about any of these possibilities. So let's think if there's any other.
I just want to say the sooner that you can send in your submission, the better, because if there is something wrong, I try to reach out to the artists. The sooner the possible it is for them to submit another print, so they're not just basically, disqualified.
Yeah, and we will let you know if a print is disqualified for any reason, whether it's a size restriction. I hate to call out artists, but often people confuse the 4 square inches as meaning 4 inches by 4 inches. I think artists are not always as mathematically inclined as scientists maybe. But yeah, it is 4 square inches, not 4 inches by 4 inches. And on the prospectus, if you print it out at actual size, there are a couple of examples of the size embedded in the prospectus. And as we said, if you have any questions, you can email us or call us. You can send us a picture, ask us if it's eligible, and we can let you know before you send it, just to make sure that it would not, we don't want anyone to send something and then find out that they mistakenly sent something wrong.
Yes.
Let's see, Sinclair had a question. We usually suggest, well, I'll back up. So for an international $50 entry fee, you are eligible for 3 entries.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, what do we say, Jackie? Usually sending 2 to 3 copies of each entry is a good number to start with.
Well, what happens is if you're accepted into the exhibition, I send out within that notification letting you know that you're in the exhibition, I ask for 6 additional impressions per entry, per print that got in. Because oftentimes you want the buyer that's interested to have that print right there. If they feel that they have to wait for the print to arrive, especially if it's international, they'll lose interest.
Yeah.
So I say at least 6 additional ones.
Yeah. I mean, that definitely, we definitely have artists sell a half dozen prints for sure, especially if they're lower price point prints. I know we had a student last Miniprint, and they sold absolutely every impression they had that they had submitted. They wish they had made a larger edition, but they only had about 6 prints, and they sold every single one of them.
Yes.
Well, and one of the other things we wanted to bring up on the call today was that if you need help with your editioning, help getting your prints out, I mean, we are functioning, we are operational. You know, our printers can help you with a project. And
Absolutely.
Chris and Liz, I don't know if you want to go into like what availability you have, but I'm sure you have ideas.
Yeah, I don't know. Elizabeth Banish is actually a new employee, actually coming up in a couple months on a year, but obviously this has been a very strange last year. But Liz and myself, as well as Megan, another printer on staff, we are available if you needed any assistance. We could possibly cut copper plates. We could send you materials at the at a reasonable rate if you needed some small things. You may not be able to get, like, say, a pronto plate at a small size, but we may have some in stock, and we might be able to trim them down and pop them in the mail for you. We could also process plates for you if that was something you were interested in, whether you sent us a film and we were able to shoot and send you a photopolymer plate, or say you did a hard ground etching but didn't have access to etching facilities. That's something we might be able to help with. You could send the plate, we could etch it for you, and then clean it off, send it back to you. We also have editioning services where if you sent us a plate because you didn't have access, we could talk with you on the phone at a remote cost rate, and then do edition printing for you, send the prints back to you for signing, or something of that nature. We could also help just brainstorm if you wanted to hire one of us for a online tutorial. You could give us ideas, and we could help to talk about ways that you might be able to create prints, just conceptual ideas. If you wanted to translate your work in a way you weren't sure into that scale, we often have tricks at working at that scale, or translating work into that scale that may be helpful. So feel free to reach out. You could always email our info email, or if you go on our website, all of our emails are available through the staff directory in our website. I don't know if Liz, if you wanted to mention anything about what you're really good at in terms of helping.
There you go. Hello. Yeah, so in addition to the other services that Chris mentioned that we can offer to you all, we can also offer, in case perhaps you're interested in doing photographic things at home, we could print out digital films for you, like to do sort of like, if you're using anything at home with like silk screen or cyanotype or something like that, we can process and print out negatives for you, or positives if that's part of your process. Pretty much all of our standard services apply. So everything from, troubleshooting sort of the process of conception reception, all the way to like the more technical nitty gritty, troubleshooting problems that you might have during the printing process or the plate making process, and on forward to editioning. We can also provide that service for you. So all the usual, benefits of having the CCP around still apply, and we're able to find creative ways to support you all in the best we can during these, sort of new and unusual times. So we're able to sort of like pretzel ourselves, fit ourselves into new roles here, but can still, help you in the same way that we always have.
Yeah, we've actually shifted our education program to all Zoom and online. And in that, during this pandemic, we've actually found some new methodologies for printing and some techniques that are more accessible to people that don't have the setups at home. There's a couple workshops coming up, but we could also go back and independently introduce some of these ideas to you if you were looking for ideas. As I said, if you had traditionally done one methodology and didn't have access and wanted to reach out to us, we could work with you to try to develop a new technique that might give you the results you were looking for. Obviously, if you're local, we could even do things as complicated as prepare a small lithographic stone, do a contactless drop off. You could take it home, execute the drawing or the work on the stone, bring it back to us, and we could process it and print it. We are open by appointment, and so it is possible to do socially distant in-person printing. We've set up some really great protocols at the center with cleaning protocols, mask use in the studio. We have some great, we found out some great air ventilation problem solving that really limits the spread of any particles in our studios. So while we are not open in our normal way, we are still able to have people within the area to come in and use the studio spaces. So in that same vein, if you wanted to come in and rent the studio in our socially distant setup, we could also help to prepare things for you. So when you came in, maybe we had some small monotype plates organized for you, things like that. As we said, whatever we can do to make this sort of new way of working work better for everyone, we are more than happy to help.
Please accommodate.
Yes. And now, actually, I thought Liz mentioned it. Cyanotype is a method of, while it's more photography, we have found that it crosses a line into printmaking. It's also a class that we are teaching currently. And so that would be eligible for this exhibition. We would advocate to the juror to include them if for some reason the juror didn't want to include them. You still may get into the salon des refusés, but it's definitely something that we would include as with, say, photogravure, photopolymer is a qualifying technique. As I said, original digital media qualifies. And Jackie had mentioned also encaustic. Usually any of the techniques that we teach at CCP would be eligible. I think we've even had handmade paper on a small scale that included inclusions or something like that, could be considered eligible since it's an ancillary technique that's related to printmaking. And as I said, if you're concerned, reach out to us and get our opinion of whether we think it will be okay for the juror. We would hate to have people submit work and then we had to disqualify you because it was well beyond the scope of what we were allowing.
It actually makes me want to bring up the question. I don't know if you've mentioned this because I had to walk away from the computer, but like, are there disciplines that are not accepted? Like, are there media types that do disqualify?
Well, photographs,
Photographs, direct
straight
photographs.
photographs would not be eligible. Like, like something that was clearly a photograph. The digital realm gets a little bit unusual, where if you just did like say a snapshot on your phone and printed it at a small size and it was clearly just a photograph, that would not really qualify. But if it was clearly using the computer as a tool to manipulate the information in the same way you would in a print, and then outputting it, that's what would be considered original digital media. It must really represent something that was manipulated. I would say manipulated, but that's where like cyanotype, you creating a film, you're sensitizing something, you're doing an exposure. It's similar to say like a photopolymer plate or something. And while it's a bit of a gray area, there are often techniques that look like a photograph in the final presentation. But what we're really looking for, and ultimately it comes up to the juror, whether they believe that it fits our original digital media kind of category. I know in the past we've had some amazing, beautiful digital work in the exhibition. We've also had jurors say, while I agree it's considered printmaking, none of these works sort of transcend into the place where I want them to be. And that is where it's up to the juror to include the things that they believe fit these restrictions. I know we had one juror love original digital prints, as a curator at a very renowned institution, did not actually accept any digital media prints because they just didn't believe that any of them pressed the boundaries where it crossed over into this sort of fine art category of original digital media. So while they're a big fan of that work, they had a very high bar for what they believed sort of became a fine art print. So it's, but as we said, any prints that are submitted that fit the size restrictions will fall into this salon de refusé, and therefore will be seen even if the juror does not deem them worthy of being selected for the exhibition. So,
Chris, there's
yes.
a clarifying question, and I think it is something you mentioned about photopolymer.
Yes, photopolymer absolutely is qualified because it needs to be printed through a press. In the past, we've said, work needs to have gone through a press, but particularly right now with the pandemic, a jelly plate or something that's hand printed using a caster or something to transfer information, it doesn't necessarily go through a press, but it is pressed and printed. So photopolymer works. I know that there are ways of making photopolymer where they can be hand printed, whether it's made into a relief plate or another version of printing. But photopolymer definitely qualifies, as does photogravure, and things like trace monotype, jelly plates. Trying to think. We're very much open to people pushing the boundaries of what a print is. But photography in the traditional sense of photography, it is a little bit of a gray area. And as we said, if you're very concerned, just reach out and we can help to direct you so that you don't submit something that is not eligible.
Okay. I mean, unless there are any further questions or any last minute bits of knowledge that we haven't already shared, I'm realizing we're approaching an hour, and I don't want to monopolize anybody's time, but I do appreciate everybody coming, and I hope that this was useful. There was a lot to go through. We do this every other year, and the preparations and the execution of it really are elaborate. But it takes some doing also on everyone's part, the artists submitting as well as ours. So, oh, there is a question. Is there a catalog from the recent Footprint show? There is. There is. And Jackie, do we have some up at the desk?
Yes, I'll pop one into the mail to you, Judith.
Ask and you shall receive. We are very accommodating.
Yeah, I think we have a couple
We
left
do
over
have
from
a
the
lot.
exhibition.
We were trying to include them in the packaging, got a little crazy.
Yeah, we tried to include them in the artists that got into the Footprint exhibition. We tried to include a copy, but I think a couple of them maybe slipped out, or we forgot in our
Unnoticed.
rush to wrap things up. Yes. I mean, as I said, for Miniprint, we will also have a catalog that it won't include every print, but it will be a listing of everybody. And there will be an online version that you can see online. Whether you can actually physically print the online catalog, I think there is some difficulty with that, but these catalogs also exist on our website archived, and they'll always be on the web forever. So it will be there.
But we can send out a couple of catalogs. Jackie, there are a couple of requests here. So
Yep.
We made them. We would be happy to have them looked at and enjoyed. So
yeah.
I'll be willing to share.
Yes, yes. So, all right. Well, thank you everyone for taking the time to join us today. Thank you, Chris and Jackie and Liz, for participating and for the wealth of information and knowledge that you have, helping everyone at CCP. For those of you who are members and frequent visitors to CCP, great to see you, even if it's virtually. Sinclair, thank you for joining us. Always good to hear from you too. And I wish everyone a wonderful day, weekend, and if you can submit something for this show, that would be wonderful. And come by CCP to come and see it. All right. Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, Kim, if you